This is the Popcorn and Pop Culture Podcast. Thank you for listening to our show. On this podcast, we like to cover all things pop culture. We like to talk about movies, TV, and especially entertainment news. So, for this episode, this is our Hall of Fame episode. Find out what movie is going to be inducted. My name is Robert Ang, and with me, my good buddy, he is Michael Sheehan. What's up, Mike?
What's up, everybody?
So, I'm super stoked for this episode, man. We have only done one Hall of Fame episode on our podcast, and this is our second Hall of Fame episode. So, this episode, we are inducting a new movie into our Hall of Fame, and this movie is from the year 1989. Mike, would you like to do the honors to tell our listeners what movie is being inducted into our Hall of Fame?
Absolutely. The illustrious pick for 1989 is Back to the Future Part 2.
Oh yeah! Back to the Future Part 2 has now been inducted into our Hall of Fame. Mike, we were, I think, only 4 years old when this movie came out, so I want to ask you, when did you watch this movie for the first time, if you remember, or just in general, your recollection of this movie and how you fell in love with it?
You know, I could not tell you when I watched this movie for the first time. I definitely remember watching Back to the Future when I was very young. And then I think I remember being a little older and discovering that there had been a sequel. And I was young enough to not really know what sequels were, I think. But I was like, oh, they made another one? You know, and I remember watching it. And I don't think it's a movie that either Back to the Future when I was younger, I don't think I could appreciate them. But as I've grown older and as I've when I went into college and really rediscovered film and got back into watching all these movies, went back and watched both of them, all three of them, and just fell in love with Part 2. I love all of them. I know people are like, even the third one? Yes, even the third one I find entertaining. And Back to the Future is obviously a classic, but Part 2 is my favorite of the series. Is it for you as well?
Oh, wow. I'm not sure. I'm not confident enough to say that it's my favorite of the series. I would have to rewatch it because it has been a while since I watched any of the Back to the Future films. And like you, though, I do like all three. I do even still like the third part. I think that's a great movie to watch. But I can't go on the record and say that Part 2 is my favorite. At least not yet, Mike. But that was that was a bold thing to say, Mike. Good job.
Thank you. And I'll make a quick case for why I think so. Basically, it covers every single part of number one and then adds a story on top of it, which is just a phenomenal writing, and it was so well executed. You get all the best parts of the first movie and this awesome new story on top of it. So that's why I love number 2 so much. You know what?
No, that's a great reason. And that's, we're talking about, Back to the Future Part 2 and how it's in our Hall of Fame now. So let's explore that even further. That was I feel like Part 2, it came out 4 years, I think, after the original. So I'm not even sure if they had in mind that there was going to be a next movie. I don't know if they anticipated how much of a success the first original Back to the Future was going to be. So maybe I'll have to do some research on that. But in my opinion, I'm not sure if they, if they didn't have anything in mind for Part 2, the screenplay that they came up with almost seemed like impossible to pull off. Like you said, they had elements and a lot of the storyline from Part 1 into this movie, and then where they had the storyline where they had to, change the past again to change the future, and they had to avoid from being seen from their own characters that was in that 1955 when they actually blasted to the past from the first one. I mean, I'm talking about the plot right now, and I really don't even know if I'm making sense, but it makes sense if you've seen the movies, and I think it's just such a spectacle to be done. This is like time travel at its maybe earliest or maybe its finest. And it seems so messy, but for some reason, it just works, and it works so well done. And I don't even know, this might have been the first time I've ever seen a movie do the whole like camera trick where like, you know, one version of the actor is in the scene and another version of the same actor is in the same scene, like it blew my mind when I watched it for the first time. Mike, what about you?
I agree, man. You know, just thinking about this movie too, it's like I still go back and watch this. It's like, damn, this was quite an accomplishment. You know, it looks pretty seamless. Like a lot of the, you know, obviously they use like stunt doubles during a portion of it. You know, they use, you know, screen overlays. So like, I mean, just great techniques. Really, really, you know, put in there to perfection, and just a story that you're like, you know, you're watching every minute. You kind of don't know where it's going. You don't know, are they going to get discovered? What's going to happen? Just an inventive story, entertaining from the first minute to the last. And also the one thing too that I always thought about is like the main kind of story of this movie or idea behind it is like what could you, if you could go back in time and become rich, how would that impact your life? You know, and I love the fact that they go down that storyline with Biff, and just how evil someone could become with doing that. So the whole movie is just so entertaining. You really watch them weave this incredible tale inside of the Back to the Future 1 film. And you're like, damn, how did they pull that off? It's so good.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I think that was always like a question that was asked, and I'm so happy they addressed it, because it's like, yeah, if I can go into the future and know all of these events that are going to happen, especially sports and things like that, and then you go into the past and bet on them and make a fortune, like, who wouldn't do that? Or who at least wouldn't try to do that to become rich? And it's so cool how they address that. And I think one of the most... Okay, this is why Part 2 is just so big in my mind, but also big in like pop culture history, is because when we think of Back to the Future, when we think about the entire franchise, what is the one thing that like stands out the most? And at least to me, it's the hoverboard, and that came through with Part 2. And there was that opening scene, or opening-ish scene, when they travel to October 21st, 2015, that, like, looking back at it now and watching it now is hilarious, but, like, just trying to put yourself in the shoes of an audience member from 1989 watching this, and maybe, like, it seemed pretty legitimate. Like, I laugh now at, like, the holographic billboard of Jaws 19. I thought that was hilarious. But, like, self-tying shoes, hoverboards, like, who wouldn't want all this stuff? And it's just so funny the way that they created this futuristic world, and it's just so amazing to watch. Mike, what do you think?
Yeah, you know, that idea of like, oh, what could the future be like, and what are the things that are what kind of technology is going on, and it's pretty cool. And I think, you know, just to comment on like where we are in society, like they've made that hoverboard and they've made those self-tying shoes, so you know, those became real because of the film. Like these things that were, and there's been other ideas that have happened in other movies that have come to fruition as well. But it's just cool. It's a part of our like society that we think about those things, and those two items came from this movie, like you said. So it is fascinating. There's not a part of this movie I don't enjoy. You know, you get to see Christopher Lloyd being Christopher Lloyd as Doc. You know, Michael J. Fox again. You know, just killing it. And it's one of those things, like when I think about Michael J. Fox as an actor, I immediately go to this movie. I know he made other films, but I just think of Back to... I feel like, how could you not? Like, he is Back to the Future.
Yeah, I agree. Like, this is, in my opinion, his, like, peak moments of Back to the Future in his entire career. And, yeah, I'm trying to think of more reasons why I love, you know, Back to the Future Part 2. And I just think it's just such a... I feel like it's the one movie out of the trilogy that kind of, like, tries the most to do things sci-fi-y. You know, you have, obviously, the original was very sci-fi. There's time traveling. But it doesn't even touch upon how much time traveling there was in Part 2. And Part 3 is kind of just a straight-up story. Like, it's a great movie. It's very entertaining. But, like, they go back you know? So they go back to like the 1800s and it's a Western, but you know, it's all in fun. But part two is just so ambitious, in my opinion. It really just tried so much, and it's almost, I marvel at the fact that when you try to explain to someone the plot of Back to the Future Part 2, and then after you're done with exhaustion from explaining someone the plot, you're like, oh yeah, by the way, this movie was well under 2 hours. And you're just like, what? Like, this movie would take an entire season, entire 10 to 13 hours of a television show to try to explain, but this movie was done in less than 2 hours. That is just an accomplishment and a feat in its own right. What do you think about that, Mike?
Yeah, man, you're just like strapped in for the ride during this film. Like, it is so fast paced. It is there's constantly things going on, and like I said before, like you're just not exactly sure what's going to happen or where the movie's going. You know, I still love a movie that you can watch and be surprised by where it ends up. Obviously, with a lot of movies, like it has a happy ending, like so it's going to get there, but it's just like the ride and like trying to figure out where you're going to get, how it's going to get there. Also, like the couple other like random things that like they mentioned in the movie, like that now the actual DeLorean operates off of recycled food and beverages. Like they change like minor things, but like they're like just some of the stuff. It's awesome. And I think I'm pretty sure this line is just from that movie. Is like, where we're going, we don't need no roads.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, definitely.
Very, very famous line from the film. So yeah, I think we could go on and on about this movie. Is there any last things you want to say about this inductee into our Hall of Fame?
I mean, it's just we just did an episode about art versus entertainment, and the Back to the Future franchise, in my opinion, just perfectly blends an entertaining idea, premise, and executes it so well with so much in mind to make it such a piece of art. And it's a perfect blend. It's such an enjoyable film, but one that has stuck around and one that is still relevant to today. I think if you watch this movie today, and if this is the first time you're watching these movies, you're going to enjoy it as much as someone watching it back then. And that's how you know it's a classic. And that's why it is our newest Hall of Fame inductee. Mike, what do you think?
I agree, man. Talking about this movie, it makes me really want to go and watch it again. Anytime it is on TV, I watch it. I'll watch any of the Back to the Future. Like I said, this is my favorite. It's just so much fun. It's just such a good movie. So if you haven't seen it, please get off your butt and then get on your butt and go watch it.
That is right. Back to the Future Part 2! Congratulations! Alright. Thank you for listening. This has been the Popcorn and Pop Culture Podcast. You can find us on iTunes. You can find us on Google Play. You can find us wherever you listen to your podcast, on your app or on your computer. So please drop us a line, give us a review, say that we're awesome, and we will appreciate it. Anyway, that was it, and see you next time. Peace.
Peace.